My parents bought my sister a house, then handed me the mortgage papers. We've decided you should pay for it. I refused, so they sued me for $480,000. Until the judge reviewed the evidence, and now they regret ever crossing me. Hey everyone, my name is Marcus, and I'm 31 years old. I used to think family was everything, that blood meant loyalty, and parents always had your back. Boy, was I wrong. This is the story of how my own parents tried to steal $500,000 from me, and how I made them regret it in ways they never saw coming. Growing up in suburban Denver, I was always the responsible kid. While my younger sister Jessica was out partying and making terrible decisions, I was hitting the books, working part-time at Target, and planning for my future. Jessica, she was the golden child, the baby of the family who could do no wrong. When Jessica dropped out of Colorado State after 2 semesters, my parents paid off her student loans without blinking. When she racked up $15,000 in credit card debt buying designer clothes and weekend trips to Vegas, they bailed her out. When she quit her job at Starbucks, her 4th job in 2 years, they told her to focus on her mental health and moved her back into their basement. Meanwhile, I was busting my ass working at a logistics company during the day and delivering for DoorDash at night. I'd saved up $30,000 for a down payment on a small townhouse in Lakewood. Every dollar I earned went toward my student loans or my savings account. I tried not to resent Jessica. I really did. I told myself everyone's path was different, that my parents were just trying to help her find her way. But deep down, I knew something was seriously messed up about the whole situation. Last December, everything changed. My parents invited me over for dinner. Mom made her famous pot roast and apple pie, acting unusually cheerful. After dessert, they handed me a manila envelope with big smiles on their faces. Marcus, we have something important we need you to look at, Dad said, his voice overly casual. You're the responsible one in this family. We trust you with this. I should have known right then that something was wrong. When your parents start buttering you up like that, you're about to get screwed. But I opened that envelope anyway, and what I found inside changed everything. What was in that envelope that would destroy Marcus's relationship with his family forever? My hands were shaking as I pulled out the documents. At first, I couldn't make sense of what I was seeing. There were mortgage papers, loan applications, property deeds, all with one thing in common. My name was on every single page as the primary borrower. But the house, that was going to Jessica. $480,000. That's what they wanted me to be responsible for. A brand new 4-bedroom house in Highlands Ranch with granite countertops, a 3-car garage, and a price tag that would destroy my financial future. What the hell is this? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Mom smiled that fake smile she used when she was about to ask for a huge favor. Well, honey, we found Jessica the perfect house. She and Brad are ready to settle down and start their family. The problem is, with her credit history and Brad's unemployment situation, they can't qualify for a mortgage. Brad, Jessica's boyfriend of 8 months who spent more time playing Xbox than looking for work. So we put the mortgage application in your name, Dad continued, sipping his coffee like this was the most normal thing in the world. You've got great credit, a steady income, no kids to worry about. It just makes sense. I stared at him, waiting for the punchline. You're joking, right? Please tell me this is some kind of sick joke. They weren't joking. Jessica and Brad will live in the house and make the payments, Mom explained. Well, eventually, once they get on their feet. Until then, you'll handle the mortgage. It's only fair, we've helped you so much over the years. Only fair. I'd been financially independent since I was 18. The only thing they'd ever helped me with was a $200 loan for textbooks my sophomore year, which I'd paid back with interest. There's no way I'm signing this, I said, standing up so fast my chair scraped against the floor. This is insane. I have my own life, my own plans. I'm not sacrificing my future so Jessica can play house with her deadbeat boyfriend. That's when the masks came off. Mom's sweet expression twisted into something ugly. You owe us, Marcus. After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us. Dad leaned forward, his voice turning cold. We already submitted some of the paperwork using your information. We have your social security number, your employment details. All we need is your signature to make it official. The room started spinning. You what? You used my information without my permission. We're your parents, Mom snapped. "We don't need your permission." I grabbed the papers and headed for the door, my heart pounding. "You absolutely do need my permission. And you'll never get it." But Marcus had no idea just how far his parents were willing to go to force his hand. The next few weeks were hell. It started with phone calls, Mom crying about how I was tearing the family apart, Dad lecturing me about responsibility and gratitude. Then came the guilt trips from extended family members who'd somehow heard a very one-sided version of the story. My cousin Ashley called me at work. "Marcus, I can't believe you're being so selfish. Jessica just wants a chance at happiness." My uncle Tom showed up at my apartment. "Your parents sacrificed everything for you kids. The least you can do is help your sister out." But I wasn't budging. I'd consulted with a lawyer, Sarah Mitchell from a downtown firm, and she'd confirmed what I already knew. What my parents had done was fraud, plain and simple. They'd pulled my credit report without authorization and filled out loan applications using my personal information. "Document everything," Sarah advised. "Every phone call, every text message, every interaction. If they escalate this, we'll need evidence." They escalated it. 3 months after that dinner from hell, a process server showed up at my door. My own parents were suing me for $480,000 in damages. According to their lawsuit, I had verbally agreed to take on the mortgage and had backed out at the last minute, leaving him financially stranded. I called Sarah immediately. "They're claiming I agreed to this." "That's completely false. Do you have any proof of your actual conversations with them?" she asked. Thank God I did. I'm the type of person who documents everything. It's a habit I picked up working in logistics. I had text messages, emails, even some voice recordings from when I'd started getting suspicious about their behavior. But the emotional toll was harder to handle than the legal issues. These were my parents, the people who'd raised me, who'd come to my high school graduation, who'd taught me to ride a bike and drive a car. Now they were sitting across from me in a courtroom, lying under oath about conversations that never happened. Jessica had moved into the house anyway. She posted photos on Instagram of herself and Brad grilling steaks on the back patio, hosting game nights in the living room, picking out furniture for their home. The home I was supposedly paying for. She even had the nerve to text me, "Stop being such a drama queen and just pay it. You make good money, and it's not like you have a family to support. I actually need this house." But Marcus was about to discover that his family's betrayal went even deeper than he'd imagined. The discovery phase of the lawsuit revealed the full extent of my family's deception. Sarah's team had subpoenaed bank records, email accounts, and phone records. What we found was a conspiracy that had been months in the making. Turns out, my parents had been planning this since the previous summer. Email chains between Mom and Jessica showed them discussing my stubbornness and how they'd need to present it as a done deal to get me to go along with it. Dad had used his connections at the bank where he'd worked for 20 years to expedite the loan process. He'd convinced his former colleague in the mortgage department to overlook some of the documentation issues, promising that I was good for the money. Most damning of all was a text message from Mom to her sister, "Marcus won't know what hit him. By the time we're done, he'll have no choice but to pay up. Jessica deserves this house, and he has the means to provide it." They'd even forged my signature on the initial application documents they'd stolen from my apartment during their last visit, when Mom claimed she needed to use my bathroom and spent 15 minutes looking for hand towel. Sarah spread the evidence across her conference table like she was laying out a winning poker hand. "Marcus, this isn't just fraud. This is conspiracy to commit fraud, identity theft, and forgery. Your parents could face serious criminal charges." I stared at the documents, feeling sick. "I don't want them to go to prison. I just want them to leave me alone." "That might not be your choice to make," Sarah warned. "The bank is cooperating with our investigation, but they're also conducting their own internal review. If they determine this was intentional fraud, they're legally obligated to report it to federal authorities." The court date was set for mid-May. As we prepared our case, more evidence kept surfacing. Security footage from the bank showed my parents meeting with the mortgage officer multiple times, pointing to documents and nodding confidently. Cell phone records showed dozens of calls between them and Jessica in the days leading up to their surprise dinner invitation. Jessica, meanwhile, was living it up in her dream house. She'd quit her part-time job at the mall and was posting daily updates about her homeowner life. Brad had proposed, with a ring they definitely couldn't afford, and they were planning a wedding for the following spring. "She's spending money like it's going out of style," I told Sarah during one of our prep sessions. "New furniture, a hot tub, landscaping. They're acting like they actually own the place." "Let them," Sarah replied with a grim smile. "Every dollar they spend is more evidence of their intent to defraud. They're digging their own grave." 2 weeks before the trial, my parents made one last attempt to pressure me into dropping the case. They showed up at my apartment with Jessica and Brad, demanding to work this out as a family. But Marcus was done being the family peacekeeper. It was time for war. The courtroom was packed on the day of the trial. My parents had brought half the extended family, probably hoping to make me look like the ungrateful son who was destroying the family over money. Aunt Linda, Uncle Tom, several cousins, they all sat behind my parents, shooting daggers at me with their eyes. I sat with Sarah, trying to keep my hands from shaking as the judge reviewed the case summary. Judge Patricia Hernandez was known for being no-nonsense, which Sarah said worked in our favor. My parents' lawyer went first, painting a picture of a verbal agreement gone wrong. He claimed I'd enthusiastically agreed to help my sister, then backed out due to sibling rivalry and jealousy. It was complete fiction, but he delivered it convincingly. Then it was our turn. Sarah methodically presented our evidence. The forged signatures, she brought in a handwriting expert who testified that the signatures were obviously not authentic. The stolen documents from my apartment. The email chains showing premeditation. The bank security footage. But the moment that changed everything came when Sarah played a voicemail my mother had left me after I'd refused to sign the papers. Mom's voice filled the courtroom. "Marcus, I don't know why you're being so difficult about this. We used your information because we knew you'd overthink it and find reasons to say no. Jessica needs this house, and you have the means to provide it. Stop being selfish and do what's right for your family. We're your parents, we know what's best." The confession was right there, recorded on my phone for everyone to hear. The judge's expression grew darker as each piece of evidence was presented. When Sarah showed the text messages between my parents discussing how to handle me, Judge Hernandez actually shook her head in disgust. Jessica was called to testify, and she completely fell apart on the stand. When asked if she'd been involved in planning the deception, she started crying and blaming everyone else. "I didn't know they were going to forge his signature," she sobbed. "I just wanted a house. Marcus has always had everything easy, and I've had to struggle. I thought he'd want to help me." The prosecution tore her story apart. If she didn't know about the forgery, why had she moved into the house before I'd agreed to anything? Why were there text messages between her and our parents discussing my stubbornness? Dad tried to claim it was all Mom's idea. Mom blamed Dad for the financial details. They were throwing each other under the bus, destroying what was left of their credibility. Judge Hernandez didn't need long to deliberate. When she returned, her voice was ice cold. "This court has rarely seen such a blatant case of familial fraud and manipulation. The defendants attempted to saddle the plaintiff with nearly $500,000 in debt through forgery, identity theft, and conspiracy. Their behavior is not only legally reprehensible but morally bankrupt." She dismissed the case entirely and ordered my parents to pay my legal fees. But that wasn't all. I'm also recommending this case to the District Attorney's Office for Criminal Investigation. What you've done here goes far beyond a civil matter. But the real revenge was just getting started. Walking out of that courtroom felt like waking up from a nightmare. My parents' faces were ashen, their supporters silent and confused. For the first time in my life, I'd stood up to them and won. But I wasn't done. The first thing I did was file for a restraining order. The barrage of angry calls, texts, and emails that followed the trial made it easy to justify. My parents had gone from manipulation to outright threats, and I documented every single message. "You've destroyed this family," Dad texted. "Don't expect any help from us ever again. You're dead to us," Mom added in a voicemail. "We wish we'd never had you." The restraining order was approved within a week. Meanwhile, the bank's internal investigation was moving forward. Turns out, mortgage fraud is a federal crime, and banks don't mess around when it comes to protecting their assets. The FBI's Financial Crimes Unit opened their own investigation based on the evidence from our trial. But the best part, Jessica and Brad were about to lose their dream house. Since the mortgage was fraudulent and the bank had frozen the title, foreclosure proceedings began immediately. Jessica had 60 days to vacate the property. I almost felt bad for her when I saw her Instagram posts turn from bragging about homeownership to desperate pleas for help. "The system is rigged against people like me," she posted. "My own brother destroyed my chance at happiness because he's jealous of my success." She was unemployed and living in a house obtained through fraud. The eviction notice was served on a Tuesday. Jessica filmed herself crying in the empty living room, blaming me for ruining her life, and posted it on TikTok. The video actually went viral, but not for the reasons she hoped. People in the comments were roasting her for trying to steal her brother's financial future. What she didn't realize was that the bank documents were visible in the background of her video, clearly showing the foreclosure notice and fraud investigation details. She'd basically provided evidence of her own knowledge of the illegal activity. 2 weeks later, Jessica and Brad were evicted. Her engagement ended shortly after. Apparently, Brad wasn't interested in a girlfriend who came with federal criminal charges. But I wasn't satisfied with just legal justice. These people had tried to destroy my life, dragged my name through the mud, and turned extended family against me. They deserved to face social consequences too. I reached out to my college friend Mike, who worked for a Denver news station that covered local legal stories. "You're not going to believe the story I have for you," I told him. The story of the family mortgage fraud was about to become front-page news. The news story broke on a Thursday morning. Local parents sue son for refusing to pay sister's fraudulent mortgage. Mike's station ran it as their lead story, and by afternoon, it had been picked up by national outlets. The story had everything: family drama, financial fraud, entitled siblings, and the David versus Goliath courtroom victory. Social media exploded with reactions. #mortgage fraud and #family betrayal started trending on Twitter. My parents tried damage control, claiming the media had gotten the story wrong, that I'd twisted the facts to make them look bad. But the court documents were public record, and people could read the truth for themselves. Jessica's TikTok became evidence exhibit A for internet sleuths who dug up every entitled post she'd ever made. Her Instagram comments were brutal. "Imagine trying to steal $480,000 from your brother and then playing victim when it backfires." The extended family members who'd called me selfish were suddenly very quiet. My cousin Ashley actually apologized, saying she'd only heard Mom's version of events. Uncle Tom never reached out, but I heard through the grapevine that he was mortified by his involvement. The federal investigation concluded 6 months later. My parents were charged with conspiracy to commit mortgage fraud, identity theft, and forgery. They eventually pled guilty to reduced charges and received probation, but their reputations in the community were destroyed. Dad lost his job when his employer learned about the fraud charges. Mom had to close her small accounting practice when clients started leaving. They sold their house and moved to a small apartment across town. Jessica moved back in with them, her dreams of home ownership and marriage completely shattered. Last I heard, she was working at a call center and still posting bitter social media rants about how family should stick together. As for me, I used the money I'd saved for legal fees, which my parents had to reimburse, as a down payment on a beautiful townhouse in Littleton. I got promoted at work, started dating an amazing woman named Rachel who thinks my family drama stories are impressively dysfunctional, and built a life surrounded by people who actually respect boundaries. I've had people ask if I regret going nuclear on my family. The answer is no. They taught me that love without respect is just manipulation, that blood doesn't guarantee loyalty, and that sometimes cutting toxic people out of your life isn't cruel, it's survival. They thought they'd cornered me, that I'd fold under pressure like I always had before. They expected the obedient son who'd sacrifice his future to enable their dysfunction. Instead, they got a man who'd learned to fight back. I don't miss the constant drama, the guilt trips, or the feeling of walking on eggshells around people who were supposed to love me unconditionally. What I gained was something far more valuable: self-respect, genuine relationships, and the knowledge that I'll never let anyone take advantage of me again. They wanted to steal my future. Instead, I reclaimed my life. And honestly, I've never been happier. Sometimes the best revenge is simply refusing to be a victim and building the life you actually deserve.